Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah.
Oh, boy. I feel like August always brings about, like, me trying to make a plan,
It
right?
does. Every year it does.
It's like...
this is your, like, so for some people it's January.
Yeah, no.
For you it's August.
It is August. August into September. I just
Yeah.
have been so... Because of the schools and everything else, I think it frees up time in weird ways for me. It just is like, this is the time where I start cleaning stuff and where I start really...
Organizing.
Moving forward and
place.
kind of actually wanting more of a routine, which I'm not a huge routine person. So, but anyway, so I thought in kind of thinking about the flow of seasons, I wanted to just talk about some questions that I consider or that I think are applicable for people who are trying to figure out their routine and plan in the midst of cancer.
If life feels chaotic, these are some
and
things
not
to consider.
Not just with chaos, but also like this, I want to, or these, I wish I could figure out how to fit this in, or maybe even that guilt of I'm not doing enough for myself, or whatever that is. This is kind of just like the process I think I would be thinking about in terms of questions to ask myself, right?
Yep.
So the first one is, what?
And it doesn't matter. Remember, you were talking about it doesn't matter what phase you're in here.
No, it doesn't, but I think that's the first question to consider.
Okay.
Is kind of where are you at? I mean, again, when we talk about phases, we usually talk about like up to like diagnosis up to a treatment plan. So I get it that if you're in that phase, just hang on. Just hang on. And you're going to get to having a plan and being able to make some sense out of this world, right? But the other ones would be kind of an active treatment phase where you're doing surgeries, doing chemo, doing different things like that. The other one we call a post-treatment phase, but I understand that a lot of times people start kind of with this immunotherapy where it is a regular type of medicine, but it's maybe not causing the same amount of turbulence in your life that,
Doesn't have the severe side effects.
The severe side effects doesn't take the same amount of time, in your day, kind of thing. So that's the first thing. I think it's important to recognize that, like, cancer, like life, everything has a season, right? And so sometimes what we are capable of doing is different. It just depends, right? And so I feel like it starts by thinking about, okay, I'm going to do the best I can with what I have. And that's, again, where we're going to go from there.
Well, and to be fair, we are both very seasonal. Yeah. Our lives have been seasonal because of school, and we both worked in the schools. Mm-hmm. That naturally just it gives you the fall, the winter, the spring, and then the summer. And your life kind of changes quite a bit within those because of what we do in the school and outside of school and sports and those kind of things. So we've naturally kind of changed over. I get a lot of people in real jobs don't do that as much.
Yeah.
That's kind of, right. But if you're throwing cancer in the midst,
exactly,
this is a new season for you.
Right.
And you're going to have different things to consider maybe.
I agree.
Is that fair?
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair. I mean, I think, yes, you have been thrown some curveballs, which are going to change your routine. So then it's kind of like, thinking about what comes next. So the next question for me is, what are your obligations, right? Are you a young mom? Do you have kids at home? Do you have kids going to school? Are you working? Are you working full-time, part-time? All of that is...
What is the responsibility in the work? Are you the boss? Are you an employee? Are you an hourly employee?
Right.
Compared to, not having paid time off. Yeah. These are big.
Yeah. Do you know what your schedule is? Or does your schedule always change, right? Mm-hmm. Those kind of things are all kind of the basis of, if I were to look at a week or a month, like, would I be just crossing off big periods of time knowing, no, I'm going to be at work during that time, or like, this is absolutely kid time, or whatever that looks like. You know, so what are all those big work or big obligations first, I think.
And if you were looking at that, I feel like you would be mapping that out.
Yeah.
You're kind of a map it out person, whether it's a calendar that you made and I do that too.
Yeah.
And just getting a visual.
Yeah, I'm definitely a very visual person, so I do like to kind of look at that. What does that work look like? And then where are there gaps or what, what do I have to work with beyond what I know my obligations are?
For us with work, our work was very constant.
Yes.
It didn't change, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people it does.
Yeah. The next question would be, what are your priorities? So what is that thing that is burning and maybe, again, is like a number one guilt or just what do you feel like you would feel so much better if, is it, I just think we don't always need to take on the whole world, but is it like, oh, I really wish my diet was a little better, or I really wish I could fit in some meditation, or I really wish I could figure out some sort of exercise, whatever that looks like, This is kind of like, for me, it's thinking about, all right, I have this medical treatment that I'm doing, and I'd like to plug in some of the other pieces. What's the top priority for me in terms of those pieces?
So you're not really talking about what's the priorities. You're not talking about listing out your priorities in life.
No.
There's different priorities. These are priorities that...
Yeah, this is kind of those wellness kind of categories that complement treatment, right? Okay. And like I said, I do feel like it often... You know what it is when you feel the most guilty about not doing it, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Whatever just kind of seems to be making that noise in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what are your time constraints? So going back to really looking at that, maybe putting it on paper, and not just, so what are your time constraints? If you want to look at it the other way, what are your opportunities? Where do you have some time? Mm-hmm. What does that look like? And honestly, I get it. For many of you, it's going to be like, oh no, I don't have time, or it doesn't feel like much at all.
Or on most days of the week, I don't have time.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a tough thing, but I think the goal with that is to say, okay, how can I make this work, right? And the next question with that would be, what kind of support do you need? So if your calendar is full and you can't grab time, it sounds like maybe you need some help with doing some of these obligations, or maybe you need somebody to, watch your kids a little bit, or whatever that looks like. And to relieve you of any obligations that aren't mandatory that you do, right? Or maybe it's something simpler where it's, can I pick up my children a half an hour later, or can I not do morning routine, and can my spouse do it?
Yeah. It takes a lot of planning.
It does take a lot of planning. I think part of what I'm thinking about is it doesn't mean sleep less. It means, okay, I'm not trying to be superwoman here. I'm trying to figure out how to piece together a daily routine that works for me.
I'm thinking, yeah, and if you're lucky to have a daily routine that works for you, if you've gotten to that point, there's always curveballs.
For sure.
I got one tomorrow where it takes us out of our normal routine. Well, I have to then think and go, okay, when am I going to do what, and how am I going to piece that in? It's going to be different.
Yeah.
But that's for me, because we are in normal, but we have a big change of life coming up here, going back to school, doing that. That's going to be a big change. Yeah. How do you plan? And that's, it can be, we got an appointment today and we're gone all day.
Yeah.
We're leaving at 6 a.m. We're going to be back at 6 p.m. or something. How do I still...
Well, and then it's like, do you need to fit those things in? Or do you give yourself... take a day off. I mean, I actually, when I was looking at building my schedule for the next month or so and looking at like strength training, I decided I'm going to do legs Monday, Wednesday, arms Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday be a makeup day. Because you know what I mean? Because like for me, I know that there's a chance in there
for sure
that it won't work,
yeah.
right? Or and that's okay. I mean, done is better than perfect kind of thing, and it's not worth getting into your head about, well, if I can't do it, perfectly, then I won't do it at all. But also just recognizing I need flexibility in my schedule, and maybe it is like piecing it together every week, and I feel it's calming to me to kind of lay it out, what I think it will look like, and so I just feel like also taking the time to consider that you're worth it. Like, you're so worth it. And I hope that we're changing the narrative of like, it's not selfish to take care of yourself, right? And I think it's just about finding what works, in all of these ways. Some things need much bigger blocks of time. Some things need 5 minutes, like, so
yeah,
it's just one of those things that I feel like we oftentimes are not, I don't know, we weren't told, or we don't feel like we should put ourselves first in that stuff. But I think this is a way to kind of create a plan and to have it be a fluid plan to think about, it is going to change and it doesn't have to be forever, right? Mm-hmm. But just how do you build something using some questions that are hopefully sparking some thought in terms of what matters to you, how you can do it, those type of things.
If you haven't thought about those priorities, and if you haven't thought about the scheduling to get those priorities in, there's zero chance it's going to happen.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I feel like with that, if you're choosing something that maybe just doesn't really resonate with you, then it's going to be a lot easier to go, oh no, that didn't work, or I couldn't fit it in, right? That's why I did think.
Kinda. That's not really what I'm saying. I'm saying life just goes by and you were like, oh, dang it, I was going to try to eat better today.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, you didn't think about that priority, therefore you didn't pre-schedule it and buy the food and put it in your house. And I mean, there's planning that takes place in all of this stuff. And if you don't set that as a priority, whether it's the nutrition, the fitness, the spirituality, the whatever it is for you, if you don't plan that, make it a priority, then plan it, it will not happen. Or it'll happen once.
Yeah.
And then, oh, yeah, I did try that. Remember us trying that? And that's how it works. It's got to be a priority. And it goes back to those 5 to Thrive things we talked about.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try to name the 5 because I'll screw it up. But that, and you can go back to that. Those are those things when we're talking about those things surrounding the medical care.
Yeah, it's physical, mental, nutrition, medical, and then community support or support. So those are the 5.
And those things right there are all really important. And if you're wondering like, well, what are you talking about with priorities? We're talking about those things. Those were covered in there. And it's kind of like you can go, okay, that one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the list. I'm not going to do everything. But that right there, I think, would make me feel a lot better.
Right.
Well, that's got to become your priority. You got to write that down. You got to go. I mean,
I think
not supposed to be giving advice here, but I'm saying from my experience, the people who then write that down and go, I'm going to do that, and then plan it into their day or plan it into their week, they end up doing it.
Yeah, I think another word for that is intention, right? It is truly having an intention and following through with that intention, right?
Sure.
And yeah, and it feels so good to have done that, right?
It does.
I feel like for me, it's even more like day 1, day 2, fine. Day 3, day 4, those are the days that I'm like, okay, this is going to stick, you know? And it becomes even more with that, you know, every Monday, like kind of thing. Like never miss a Monday is kind of one of those mantras that I've heard in, you know, working out or whatever. And it's just kind of one of those things that's like, how do you start your week in a way that makes you feel like, okay, I've got this, you know? And I think it's fine too. Like if your schedule doesn't allow you to do something every day, it's okay. Like do a bunch, you know, or find blocks of time that work for you and use them for your benefit. You know, if you can get 3 hours on a Saturday morning, then give that to yourself, you know.
And I would say be careful during treatment phase of what you're scheduling. Because there's way too many question marks out there on how you're going to feel, what you're going to be able to do, what you're going to be able to even keep down, or exercise-wise, or even spirituality. I mean, you're just in a funk type of thing. Be careful on, this is what I want to accomplish this month. Because there's just too many question marks, I think.
Right. I think, you know, there's a difference between obligations and commitments, right? Yeah. And obligations are the things that you need to keep your finance, you know, to keep your family afloat kind of thing. But commitments are things that maybe you've committed to that they don't have to stay, all of them, you know. Just because you've always worked in the nursery or whatever, that doesn't, you get to redefine what all that is right now. So, the other mantra or other thing that I was thinking about with all of this is that, like, I remember one time I was talking to my brother and must have been upset about something, and he's like, Heather, it's a marathon, not a sprint, you know? And the goal is to be at this for a really long time. And so sometimes we get so caught up in like these, you know, something happening a specific way at a specific time. But ultimately, it is kind of, life is, you know, all of the choices that we've made and all of the things we've encountered along the way, right?
Yeah.
It's funny, as I've been thinking about my schedule, because I have been gifted time. That's what is changing for me, is that I will have more time to do the things that I really care about. And I'm so grateful for that. But it's also like, in some ways, it feels a little bit like playing catch up for all the time that I didn't have the time to do that for myself. And I think of that mostly from a physical, you know, standpoint, just looking at, man, I used to be so strong. And I get it, some of it's aging and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, no, it is a, you know, being able to do those things over time, even just in little bits, does help, you know? It does,
yeah.
So.
Keeping the balloon in the air.
Keeping the balloon in the air, exactly. So
do you feel like, to some extent, you have a little anxiety about this next chapter?
I have some anxiety. Yeah, yes and no. I keep trying to really talk myself down from this ledge. And again, because, you know, for me, I feel so strongly that, like, what I think matters. So, like, for me, one of the most anxiety-inducing things would be finances, right? And I know that we will be okay, but I'm also like, wait a second, this is a big change for us financially. So I just have to I just keep telling myself, like, this is where I'm meant to be. This is, good things are coming. The finances will follow, kind of thing. I have some anxiety also with just, like, not with filling my time, but with using my time in a way that makes the most sense, I guess, you know. So I've also learned, though, like, what I'm moving into is way more creative, and all of that, it kind of snowballs. Some days are amazing and some days are like, I can't have one thought that's, like, you know, really feeling like I'm making a difference or whatever. So you have to learn, I think I'm going to have to learn to ride that wave a little bit too. But I mean, mostly for me, it's excitement and a feeling of being grateful to have the time. And yeah, we'll see what happens, I guess, right? But also just returning to that 5 to Thrive thing. And if you've been listening for a while, you know that I've been gently encouraged for a long time. But I am getting really close to having kind of a downloadable little ebook type of thing. I should have it out in the next couple of weeks. So, and it will be for the first part of, so that kind of from diagnosis to getting to treatment. But there's others to come. And if there's something that you guys think would be helpful too, let me know. I mean, I love to create. I know what's helpful for me. I've thought about doing...
Well, it's kind of the 5 to Thrive. If you don't know what we're talking about because all you've done is heard, but we've been kind of putting this together for a long time now. And it does give you a visual of what we talked about. To some extent, a checklist it can be.
Well, I
an
thought
idea.
about actually kind of doing a planner and some things like that too to help kind of you guide your days also.
Or to look at a list and go, that's my priority. That's what I want to get done. Not the whole, to do the whole thing is possible. It is possible because she did it.
Right.
I mean, that's the truth here. It's going to seem overwhelming, I know, for some people. And that's okay. That's why you can do the pick and choose.
Yeah.
But the reason we started this podcast a long time ago now was because a bunch of people were asking Heather, what did you do? Why are you still here? And the answer we said is we don't know.
Yes.
But the things that we went back and thought about and laid out and done it, that's the 5 to Thrive. That is what you did. And it's a part of a reason why you're still here.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the true answer. And I mean, it's interesting, even as you're talking about that, I try to be really respectful of people's circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel guilty or feel like you're not doing something you should be doing. I mean, number one, get rid of the guilt. Do the best thing you can do. I mean, that's the top for me. Though, in my circumstance, it was like so grim that literally it wasn't like I could have just kept working and just seen where it was going to go. I, though, really felt that my only option was to go all in on this and or spend the time with my daughter. That's what I was looking at. For me, going back to work in the midst of hearing what I had heard and knowing what the doctors knew at that time, I couldn't have done it. And my intuition was telling me not to do it. Everything in my body told me work does not matter. Like, it is not going to matter. So
and you did a lot of research to find these things could help me.
Yes.
These things could.
Yep.
They're not going to hurt me.
Yes.
They're going to put me in a positive direction.
That's exactly it. It was like, it's literally like, first do no harm, and then, okay, well maybe. And then again, I just got so into like what my thoughts were telling me and how I felt about that stuff and negativity and the whole protecting my brain. I still think about it on a daily basis, like what I'm going to allow in and what I won't allow in. But all of those, it's just an accumulation. The 5 to Thrive is all of that, which took years. I mean, it was a dive off a cliff to start, right? But it's been an accumulation of what I've learned, for the last 25 years. So.
And a lot of it we didn't even know we learned until a year and a half, 2 years ago when we started doing this. Really.
The other thing with that is that I think what I've been more willing to do is to step into the fact that maybe what I have to say is worth saying, right? Maybe I, maybe I have some wisdom. Maybe I have learned something over the years that can be helpful to someone. I don't need to be an expert. I don't need to, I think I've talked about this maybe in the past, but like, I come from a world of education where everything is about, how many degrees do you have? I don't have advanced degrees. I have, my occupational therapy degree or whatever, but I don't need it for this. This is like life learning. And I've recognized over time that I really like to learn from other people because of their life experiences. I don't care about their degrees. I care about people being thoughtful and wanting to help other people. And that's what brought us to this.
And all you can do is share with people what you did, what you've learned.
Right.
And understand the only circumstances that Heather went through were as a 26-year-old 26 years ago.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Right.
So if you don't fit that exact bill, understand there's variables out there that's why we don't give advice, a lot of advice.
Well, absolutely. But I also think about, as somebody who loves to consume from other people, I recognize that I'm not the same as you. You know what I mean? I'm not the same as them. So therefore, that I can't take that exact thing and apply it.
And I think we do that anywhere.
Bits and pieces.
Yeah, we go to a seminar or whatever,
right.
And if we walk out of there with 2 bits of information
we
that we didn't have,
great.
We're like, that was great.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hoping people get from this, is not a roadmap that this is exactly how I do it. No, I take that and I take that, and that's awesome. And I love that quote. Boom.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's funny because I think about Sheryl Sandberg talks about how careers are not ladders, but they're more like a jungle gym, because you don't just go up and down necessarily. Sometimes you step sideways and then you go down and then you go up again. But that's the same with this, right? With anything, with a cancer journey, like it's a jungle gym. Like you're gonna go around and figure out, okay, what is working for me? How do I get to where I want to go? So, yeah. All right. Well, as always, we hope it was helpful, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
See ya.